Benedict Spence shaking his head repeatedly.
The idea that it is the fairest system. I'm sorry, all of Europe, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, much of the developed world manages to have a system that is very different from ours, where you have integrated health insurance, and it works. Actually, it works really well. It is always lined up as an either-or. You can have the NHS, where the state does it all, or you can have the US, where everything is sort of ultra-privatised. And it is a false comparison. And I never quite understand this. We were in the European Union for decades. Why is it that so many people are just oblivious to the fact that all of Europe has a different healthcare system to us, and it works a lot better? On the subject of whose fault this is, let's not take agency away from doctors. I have a lot of sympathy for their arguments, but they are the ones that have decided to go on strike. But I have to say, the suggestion there that Dr. Sonia made, which was that people would be prepared to pay more in their taxes to fund the NHS. The tax burden in this country is at its highest in, what, half a century?
Yeah.
How's the government doing right now? Are people happy about that?
No.
I don't think they would be prepared for that.
No.
And I have to say, I think she's right. Healthcare costs a lot of money. And if people realised how much money it cost because they were paying for it out of their own pocket through a system of insurance, maybe the fact that 2/3 of conditions that are treated on the NHS being lifestyle related, maybe that might begin to change if people actually looked at their bill and went, ooh, maybe I need to change how it is that I'm living rather than expect the taxpayer to pick it up for me.
Leon Emirali, I couldn't agree with Benedict more. Part privatisation, is this the answer? Because we go round and round in circles about the NHS. Is it more money? Is it better spent money? I mean, 200 billion or whatever. I mean, it's just a deep well of misery, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, is part privatisation the answer? No, I think full privatisation is the answer to fix the NHS. I think we have to start from scratch, rip the thing up and start again, because the NHS is broken on all fronts. And exactly as you say, my mum, she rings up the GP and she can't get an appointment. And for her, that is the biggest issue in her life right now. And for a lot of people, that will be the biggest issue in their life. So it doesn't work. It isn't giving the taxpayer value for money. No. I think we need politicians with the guts to stand up and say, we need to privatise our NHS, we need to get in private investment, but they'll never do it because it's so politically contentious.
Joanna, many people say, like the Home Office, that the NHS is not fit for purpose, and they make the reasons quite, obvious, which is we have an ageing population, a much greater population. I would add to that, we allow people to get service from the NHS who actually don't pay into it and don't seem to look after the people who have paid their stamp for years. It's not fit for purpose, is it? Maybe we need to rip it up and start again. NHS 2.0, why not?
Well, yeah, maybe rip it up and have reform, but I think just because it's not working well at the moment doesn't mean you scrap the whole thing. If you were to poll the majority of the British public, and the thing that we always talk about that's our national pride is the NHS.
I don't believe it's a pride anymore for people at all.
But what the pride is, the pride isn't that the NHS is working, amazingly well. Everybody knows that there's problems in it, but it's the pride of actually having it free at the point of use. That's what people are proud of. And I think if you ask a lot of people, they'll really want to sustain that. I wouldn't be surprised if the NHS over the last 13 years is similar to what we've seen in the Home Office. We know that a lot of right-wing people really want to see the NHS completely privatised. And I wouldn't be surprised if some people in the government have actually been, sabotaging it behind the scenes to make a better case for it being privatised, even if it's part privatisation or full
But it doesn't work as it is, does it? It doesn't work.
It doesn't work, but then also they're the ones that are in the position to actually make it work and I
just don't believe that there has been a conspicuous effort by Conservatives to sabotage it, because it would be electoral suicide. Yeah. We spoke in the previous segment about the civil service. How long would that take before there were civil service whistleblowers saying, this has been done, this has been done, this has been done deliberately? We'd all know about it because they would know that this is the most unpopular thing you could possibly
do. But also you can cross your arms and not do enough.
More than 1 in 8 people.
Also sabotage.
More than 1 in 8 people on the NHS waiting list, as we said, the highest figure since records began. We asked who's to blame for the increase, the government or striking NHS staff. The government 75%, strikers 25%. H says we're still recovering from COVID as well. We are not the only country in this mess. It's all over the world. Mackenzie, why do NHS unions and their members never address the waste of money in the NHS? Maybe if that problem was solved, that would also give money to pay the staff more. I think that's a very relevant point. Christine, both parties share the blame, but mostly the government for their outrageous rules and laws since 2020. AV, the strikers are cynically exploiting an already desperate situation with no regard for the lives of so many. Just briefly to sum up, is it money? Is it changing the way that money is spent? Or I have come round to the thought that the thing doesn't work. Rip it up.
For me, it's the whole infrastructure of the NHS. And I think Joanna made a point about free at the point of access. We can still have that with a level of privatisation where we have private suppliers of healthcare. But for those who need it most, we can means test access to the NHS, where those who need it the most in society get their healthcare for free, and those who can afford to pay for it do. So I think it needs, starting from the very beginning, whole-scale fundamental reforms.
10 seconds.
Yeah, I agree. I think actually people on an individual basis need to begin to understand what the real cost of healthcare is, and I think that part privatising it is the first step in that direction.